Going to record.
That's all, folks.
Yes. And we're broadcasting. We're doing it live. So if you step up to there. Ready?
We're ready. Go ahead.
Okay. Good afternoon and welcome to the Centennial celebration of the Southeastern Library Association. My name is Gordon Baker and I live in Savannah, Georgia. I have been a member of the Southeastern Library Association since 1982. I've had the honor of serving this association in many positions, but the greatest honor was serving as the 2014-2015 president. Thank you all for coming and sharing this event with us today. Exactly 100 years ago today, in this very spot, approximately 100 librarians from 7 southeastern states gathered for what they called the Southeastern Librarians Conference. This was the beginning of what formally became the Southeastern Library Association when 9 southeastern states ratified the new association's constitution in 1924. Even though our numbers are smaller today, we are here to commemorate that special occasion. At this time, I would like to introduce Ms. Karen Glendenning, librarian at the Signal Mountain Public Library. Karen?
Welcome to Signal Mountain. Thank you for choosing to celebrate the Southeastern Library Association's 100th anniversary here on Signal Mountain, where your organization officially began. 100 years ago, this was the Signal Mountain Inn, a fine hotel that drew visitors from all over the country. They came to enjoy the scenic beauty of the mountains, drink the mineral waters at Cabin Springs, ride horses and forest trails, swim in Rainbow Lake, and on Saturday after dark, dance the night away to the strains of the Signal Mountain Hotel Orchestra. Before you leave the mountain, I hope you will have time to drive to our very own national park at Signal Point. It's just a block down the road. There you can experience the magnificent vista of the Grand Canyon of the Tennessee River. I promise you it's really worth the little short drive. Across the street from where we are right now, right across there, 51 years ago in 1969, the Signal Mountain Library first opened its doors to the community. It was located in a former post office, but soon outgrew that limited space. So several years later, we moved 11 blocks down the road to our present location. I wish we could invite you to the library today, but we're not open to the public because of the coronavirus. I love libraries and I love librarians, so it's especially rewarding for me today to greet you here. In fact, I officially invite you to hold SELA annual meeting or any kind of meeting you'd like to have at our library as soon as it's safe to have big gatherings. I hope you enjoy your visit. Welcome again to Signal Mountain.
Good afternoon. I'm Tim Dodge, current president of the Southeastern Library Association. I'm in the Research and Instruction Department of Auburn University Libraries, History and Political Science librarian. I feel both honored and humbled to be serving as SELA president now, exactly 100 years later. The world of 1920 is quite different from the world of 2020. That was the era of the Ford Model T. Commercial radio broadcasting began that very year. Women had just won the right to vote and had helped elect Warren G. Harding, the man who coined the term normalcy, as US president. Ragtime was on its way out and jazz was on its way in. Prohibition had become the law of the land, and the roaring 20s were indeed about to start roaring as the national economy took off and the stock market boomed. Sadly, Jim Crow was also the law of the land for much of the country, and the myth of the lost cause was in full flower. Newspapers and magazines were the primary means of delivering the news. Movies were still silent, although there typically was a pianist or organist on hand at the theater to provide musical accompaniment to the action on the screen. The library world of 1920 was a bit different from that of 2022. Melville Dewey was still alive until 1931. Obviously, there were no computers or printers. Books, print magazines, and journals and newspapers were it. Microfilms did not start appearing until the 1930s. The card catalog, and sometimes even a printed catalog, were the primary means for identifying and locating books. Good old Reader's Guide to Periodical Literature, familiar to at least those of us whose library careers began later in the 20th century, was the main way of identifying magazine article citations, as was also Poole's Index to Periodical Literature. Databases for locating journal article citations, much less full text copies of articles, would have amazed our librarian and library patron forebears in 1920. So too with the appearance of cafes and snack bars inside library walls. There was no internet, so finding out the odd pop culture fact, such as, for example, the birthplace of silent film star and comedian Charlie Chaplin, would have taken a bit more time and effort to find for the curious patron than it would nowadays. Despite these and numerous other examples we can think of how different things were a century ago, there also would have been some commonality. Books and even some print reference sources are still relevant today. Our roles as organizers, curators, and information providers is the same, although greatly enhanced by both the massive proliferation of resources since 1920 and the technological developments referred to a moment ago. Yesterday and today, librarians see service to our patrons, to our communities, to our educational institutions, and to other employers as perhaps the single greatest motivation for entering this profession. We have been seekers of knowledge and information. Librarians have been early adopters of technology and information resources all along. Too often, librarians have had to make do with seriously inadequate budgets and resources. I'm sure the librarians who gathered here 100 years ago today would agree that wise stewardship, if not downright frugality, are necessary attributes for functioning in a society that expects so much but generally provides so little in terms of resources for libraries. Many of us, especially if early career or work in small libraries, have done so for surprisingly low salaries, considering the education and training needed to serve as librarians. The librarians of 1920 would certainly identify with this reality. Another bond between those of us gathered here today and those gathered here in 1920 is the shared experience of living and working through a major pandemic. In our case, the coronavirus or COVID-19. In their case, the influenza, sometimes and unfairly labeled the Spanish influenza. Right now, we in 2020 are still in the midst of the crisis, as is evident in our small numbers, socially distanced and wearing masks and using hand sanitizers. For the librarians of 1920, their virus crisis was over by the very early months of 1920, but they had lived through two devastating years when an estimated 675,000 Americans died of it. Considering that the population of the United States in 1920 was around 107 million, and the population of the United States in 2020 is around 330 million, the equivalent to number today would be over 2.2 million deaths. I devoutly hope and pray our current pandemic reaches nowhere near the number, either in absolute terms or in relative terms. Still, if we and our forebears gathered here 100 years ago to talk, I have a feeling they could give us some words of wisdom and support. Let's hope the SELA librarians of 2,120 gathering here will not have to face a virus pandemic or any other major disaster such as climate change. On a happier note, let us celebrate. The Southeastern Library Association is now a century old. It has been an abiding presence and has provided so many wonderful opportunities for service and education over the past 10 decades. SELA is one of the few remaining regional library associations that provides great opportunities to participate and to contribute to our profession beyond the walls of our institutions at an affordable membership rate. It's impossible to predict the future, but all indications are that, yes, SELA will continue to fulfill its objectives as stated in Article 2 of the Constitution of the Southeastern Library Association in the SELA Handbook. The objectives of this association shall be to promote and foster library and information services in the Southeastern region of the United States through cooperation, research, and encouragement of staff development.
Good afternoon. I'm Camille McCutcheon, one of the past presidents of the SELA, and I served as president from 2015 through 2016, and I'm currently the archivist. And I'm going to read portions of the ALA resolution, which recognizes our centennial. Whereas libraries are best able to serve communities through sharing and collaboration. Whereas the Southeastern Library Association was conceived in 1920 when approximately 100 representatives from 7 states met to address the general and professional issues concerning information professionals at the time rather than topics on administration and technique. Whereas those who met in Single Mountain, Tennessee on November 12th and 13th, 1920, which at that point in time was known as the Southeastern Librarians Conference, felt that there was a professional need to organize a library association in the southeastern part of the United States. Their goals were to promote the development and needs of librarians and libraries by providing significant educational and networking opportunities to those in the southeastern part of the United States. The American Library Association, on behalf of its members, recognizes the importance of the Southeastern Library Association through its work in supporting library services on a regional level, congratulates and commends the Southeastern Library Association for its 100 years of supporting librarianship in its region and its ongoing support for furthering the goals set forth by the American Library Association, and sends a letter acknowledging SELA's formation on November 12th and 13th, 1920, and its 100th anniversary on November 12th and 13th, 2020, and its connection to the state's its services to the SELA Administrative Office.
Hello, my name is Dan Landrum, and I'm mayor here at Single Mountain. And hearing the goals read from current and past president reminds me of what a wonderful library system we have here. And the library is one of the jewels of Single Mountain, and Karen Linden's leadership is evident in anyone you talk to. So it's a success story, and it's part of what holds a small community like ours together. And it's with that in mind that I'm proud to read this proclamation from the town of Single Mountain, Tennessee. Whereas the Southeastern Library Association has been in existence for 100 years. Whereas the Southeastern Library Association was conceived in 1920 when approximately 100 representatives from 7 states met to address general and professional contemporary issues. Whereas those who met in Single Mountain, Tennessee on November 12th through 13th, 1920, known as the Southeastern Librarians Conference, felt there was a strong professional need to organize a library association in the southeastern part of the United States. Whereas their goals were to promote the development and needs to librarians and libraries by providing significant educational and networking opportunities to those in the southeastern part of the United States. Whereas the Southeastern Library Association has organized itself to promote and enhance the value of libraries to the communities of the southeastern United States. And whereas the Southeastern Library Association is an organization of 12 state library associations. Now, therefore, I, Dan Landrum, Mayor of the town of Single Mountain, by mayoral proclamation, do hereby recognize the importance of the Southeastern Library Association. Congratulate and commend the Southeastern Library Association for its 100 years of service to librarianship in the region, and celebrate the centennial of the Southeastern Library Association on this November 12th, 2020. Proclaimed and conferred this 12th day of November 2020. Dan Landrum. Thank you. Thank you guys for having me.
Dr. Lewis Rand Wilson was an important figure to the field of library science. He's listed in 100 of the most important leaders we had in the 20th century. He was one of the founders of the Library School at the University of Chicago, directed the library at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, listed as a founder of the North Carolina Library Association in 1904, and co-founder of the Southeastern Library Association, and served as its president from 1924 to 1926. And he was president of the American Library Association in 1935 to 1936. Dr. Wilson wrote, "To the library associations of each state, and to each of us individually, I have three things to say. Let's imagine vividly. Let's work out and follow a constructive library program. 3, let's plan in accord with the best national standards. In making these suggestions, I'm aware that we librarians may not be able ourselves to underwrite with bank accounts the ideas to which we give being and the programs which we formulate. But I want to remind all of us that there is value in a program, in a plan, in an idea. In some ways, such things are fertile, like the mustard seed of biblical mention. They germinate, they take root, they grow. And what they become, men and women, find happiness and fullness of life. Aycock and McIver in North Carolina, Alderman in Louisiana and Virginia, Johnson in South Carolina, Kirkland in Tennessee, Hill in Georgia, Sheets in Florida, and many others whose names stand out in the record of the growth of the South were not men of wealth. They never thought in the terms of millions of dollars, which are today going into schools and roads, such as we witness in the South. But 25 years ago, they did think great thoughts. They thought schools and roads and health and public welfare. They proclaimed them from 1,000 platforms, and in making them the thoughts of the South, they ensured the advancement of the present hour.
Once again, this is Tim Dodge, outgoing president of the Southeastern Library Association. Just like to thank everybody, whether you've attended here in person or through Zoom, and those of you maybe will be viewing this as a recording at some point. It's really been a wonderful occasion. And, you know, I'm not a superstitious sort of guy, but I kind of have a feeling that maybe the spirits of the librarians of 1920, some of them might be with us looking on in a benign fashion. I mean, just, you know, it's really a wonderful feeling to know that I'm on the spot where our library predecessors were. In any case, as you've heard through the various remarks made today, that the Southeastern Library Association really has a long, now venerable history, and we're looking forward to at least getting the next 100 years started here. I'll very quickly make one quick, a little personal reference here that I will vacate, which is, it's strange how lightning seems to strike twice in my life. I had the honor, the privilege of serving as the president of the Alabama Library Association in 2004, 2005. 2004 was the 100th anniversary of the Alabama Library Association. I don't know what it is, but I thank whoever, maybe my colleagues who voted me in both cases. But seriously, I thank you all again very much for attending, and let's keep the mission of the Southeastern Library Association going for another 100 years and beyond.
For those in Zoom land, I wish you were here to partake of the wonderful cookies that we have, but too bad, we'll enjoy them without you. Bye, thanks for listening.
Eat one for me, Gordon.
What?